All right, today we're going to remake this battery box for the KZ750. The previous regulator rectifier did not work for that bike, so I got a new one, and unfortunately, there's nowhere to mount it to this box. So I need to update the design so that the regulator can be mounted, as well as the starter solenoid and still the Motogadget. I'm probably going to add a couple little power buses right here, just so that we can run power and ground lines and disconnect them and reconnect them a little bit easier. So I have my model pulled up in Onshape, redesigned with mounting holes that'll fit the regulator rectifier. Starter solenoid will also go on the side, and then the power buses will go on either side right about here. The power buses are going to look like this. I basically just want the ability to disconnect and reconnect the battery really easily while I'm wiring, so I can test things as I go. So these will each be 3D printed. This part will be cut out of steel, and they'll be mounted on the sides of the battery box. So I have the power bus parts loaded up in Bamboo Studio, and we're going to have these 3D printing while we're cutting out all the metal. Now our power buses are being printed. All right, now we got our parts all powder coated, and now we're just going to assemble them using pop rivets. All right, we got the main box fully riveted up. Now we're going to attach the regulator rectifier to the bottom. I want it facing this way. Next up is the starter solenoid. Now it's time to assemble the 3D printed power buses. Here's our fully assembled battery box. We have our regulator rectifier on the bottom, starter solenoid on the side, ground bus, power bus, just to make connecting and disconnecting power a little bit less annoying. Then we'll just drop the battery in here, and then the Motogadget right here. Well, I made a mistake. Turns out my power bus will in fact not fit in here. So we're gonna remake it. All right, to solve that clearance issue, I have a new design, which is tapered along this edge to hopefully give just enough room for that to squeeze in. Alright, got the new version mounted up, so let's go test fitment now. Would you look at that? It just barely fits, and you can see before with the previous design exactly where it would have been hitting the frame. Alright, got the new power bus wired up. You can see it's connected to the battery, feeds through this hole, and then now when I have the Motogadget installed up here, getting to the battery would have been a pain otherwise, but now I can just tap into these power buses. Alright, I had to make a few more tweaks, but here's the completed battery box. We have the regulator rectifier on the bottom, starter solenoid on the side, positive power bus, ground power bus, battery, Motogadget. So we have all the main power lines ran. These two connections just connect to these ground pins. And now we're ready to put it on the bike. Alright, now we have the battery box mounted up. The clearance is definitely a little tighter than I would have liked. These wires just barely get around the air box. And the back of the regulator is basically touching the rear fender. But it works, so I'll take it.